Most religions promise you something at the end. Christianity promises resurrection. Islam promises paradise. Hinduism promises liberation from the cycle of rebirth. Almost every major religious tradition has at its core a vision of the end that is redemptive, a final state that makes the suffering of the present meaningful. The Norse did not believe any of that. The Norse looked at the end of the world and saw exactly what they expected: a battle they were going to lose. Not a symbolic battle, not a metaphorical defeat that secretly means victory. A real loss. The gods die, the world burns, the sea swallows everything. And the people who built this mythology knew this and built their entire value system around it. They decided that if the end was coming and couldn't be stopped, the only question worth asking was, how do you live in the face of that? The answer they came up with is one of the most psychologically sophisticated things any culture has ever produced. Today we're talking about Ragnarok, the Norse apocalypse. What it actually is, where it comes from, what it says, not the Marvel version, the real thing. And the real thing is considerably more interesting, considerably darker, and considerably more relevant than anything they put in the movie. To understand Ragnarok, you first have to understand the world the Norse built. Because the end of the world only means something if you understand what world is ending. Norse cosmology is structured around Yggdrasil, the world tree, an enormous ash tree whose roots and branches hold together 9 distinct worlds. Asgard at the top, home of the gods. Midgard in the middle, the world of humans. Jotunheim, home of the giants. Niflheim, the realm of ice and death. Muspelheim, the realm of fire. All of them connected by and dependent on the living structure of the tree. And the tree is dying. This is something the Norse cosmology establishes early and never resolves. At the roots of Yggdrasil, a serpent called Nihögg, the malice striker, gnaws at the roots continuously, has always gnawed, will always gnaw. There is no plan to stop this. No hero whose quest involves defeating Nihögg. The serpent gnaws, and the tree weakens, and eventually the tree will fall. This is the structural condition of the Norse universe. It was built to fail. Not built badly, not built by a foolish god who didn't know better, built by gods who understood exactly what they were doing. In a universe running on a cosmological clock they cannot reset. The Norse gods, the Aesir, are powerful. They are wise, some of them. They have fought and won countless battles, and they know with absolute certainty that they are going to lose the last one. Odin, the All-Father, the one-eyed wanderer who gave an eye to drink from the well of wisdom and hung himself on Yggdrasil for 9 days to gain the secret of the runes, has seen the end. He has consulted the Norns, the 3 weavers of fate. He has raised the dead to ask what is coming. He knows. Everything he does, every alliance he makes, every warrior he gathers to Valhalla, every piece of knowledge he sacrifices to obtain, is preparation for a battle he has already foreseen losing. Hold that image. We will need it later. The primary source for Ragnarok is the Völuspá, the prophecy of the seeress, from the poetic Edda, compiled in 13th century Iceland from far older poems. It is narrated by a Volva, a female seer raised from the dead by Odin to tell him what she knows. She does not want to. She has to be compelled. The signs come first. An age of axes and swords, brothers killing brothers, fathers not sparing sons. Then the Fimbulwinter, 3 winters without a summer, destroying crops, driving humanity towards starvation and violence. The bonds of kinship dissolve. Society unravels from within. Then the events. Fenrir, the monstrous wolf, son of Loki, breaks free from Gleipnir, the chain woven from impossible things. The sound of a cat's footstep, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the breath of a fish. 6 things that don't exist, woven into something light as silk and, until now, unbreakable. Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent who encircles the world by holding its own tail, releases its tail and rises from the sea. The ship Naglfar sets sail, made from the fingernails and toenails of the dead. This is why in Norse tradition you trim the nails of your dead before burial, to slow the ship's construction. Even that small act of care is preparation for an end that cannot be stopped. Surtur, the fire giant of Muspelheim, leads his forces across Bifrost. The rainbow bridge shatters. The gods ride out to meet them. Odin faces Fenrir. The wolf swallows him whole. His son Vidar kills Fenrir immediately after, but Odin is already gone. Thor kills Jormungandr, takes 9 steps back and dies from the venom already in his blood. Freya fights Surtur without his magic sword, given away long ago as a bride price, the cost of the woman he loved, barehanded, and dies for it. Tyr and the hound Garm kill each other. Loki and Heimdall destroy each other simultaneously. The sun is swallowed. The earth sinks. The fires of Surtur sweep across everything that remains. You cannot talk about Ragnarok without talking about Loki, because Loki is not incidental to the apocalypse. Loki is the mechanism by which it happens. He is a Jotun, a giant, blood brother to Odin by an old oath, living among the Aesir, but never fully one of them. He is the father of Fenrir, Jormungandr, and Hel, 3 of the primary agents of Ragnarok. His own children are the instruments of the end. He is also the one who kills Balder, the most beloved of the gods, by fashioning a dart from mistletoe, the one thing Balder's mother Frigg forgot to ask for a protective oath, and guiding it into the hands of Balder's blind brother, Urther. When the gods attempt to retrieve Balder from Hel, every being in the 9 worlds agrees to weep for him, except one giantess named Thok, who refuses. Let hell keep him. Sok is Loki in disguise. Because of this, Balder remains in hell. The gods chain Loki to a rock in a cave beneath the earth with the intestines of his own son, a serpent dripping venom onto his face. His wife Sigyn holds a bowl to catch the drops. When she leaves to empty it, the venom falls and Loki's agony shakes the earth. That is a Norse explanation for earthquakes. He waits there until Ragnarok, when the chains break. Loki is what happens when there is no loyalty beneath the cleverness. When intelligence becomes purely instrumental, committed to nothing larger than the next improvisation. The gods tolerated him for a long time. Then he killed the most beloved thing in their world. Then, imprisoned for it, he simply waited. This is the part that most people don't think about clearly. You probably know what Valhalla is. Warriors who die gloriously in battle are chosen by the Valkyries and taken to Odin's hall in Asgard, where they feast and feast again, endlessly, preparing for what exactly? Ragnarok. That is the only answer. The Einherjar, the chosen warriors of Valhalla, exist for exactly one purpose: to fight alongside the gods at Ragnarok and to lose. This is the thing that should stop you cold. Odin has seen the prophecy. He knows the outcome. He has spent uncountable ages building the greatest army of the greatest warriors who ever died in battle. And he knows, when the final battle comes, they will not be enough. He builds it anyway. There is a word in the Norse moral tradition, drengskap. Difficult to translate directly, but it points at something like the courage to act rightly and bravely when you know the outcome is hopeless. Not the courage of confidence, the courage that is simply the refusal to stop. Valhalla is not a reward, it is a recruitment. Odin takes the best warriors because he needs them, knowing they won't be enough, continuing to build the army anyway. Because stopping would mean surrendering to despair. And despair is the one thing the Norse cosmology absolutely refuses to do. Here is the part that almost never gets discussed, because the Völuspá does not end with fire and death. It keeps going. After the earth sinks, after the fire, after the sun is swallowed, the earth rises again from the sea. New, green, fertile. An eagle flies over waterfalls. Unsown fields grow with grain. Two humans, Leaf and Lithrasa, Life and Life Thrasher, emerge from the forest where they sheltered through the Fimbul winter, sustained on morning dew. Some gods survive. Vidar and Voli, sons of Odin, Thor's sons, Modi and Magni, who inherits Mjolnir. Balder returns from hell. The Völuspá describes something vast arriving, a powerful ruler coming from above to govern the new age. Scholars have debated this for generations, a transformed Aesir god, or a later Christian interpolation by the Icelandic monk who compiled the poem. The question is still open. But regardless of that debate, The Norse apocalypse contains a new beginning. The world ends, and something comes after. There are two ways to read this. The comforting version. The end is not the end. Fire clears the ground, and something new grows. The darker version. The new world rises from the same roots as the last one. Balder returns, but so does Hertha, the one who killed him. And Nidhögr, the serpent that was gnawing at Yggdrasil before the world began, is explicitly described as surviving Ragnarok. The Völuspá's closing image is the serpent flying dark against a new sun, carrying the bodies of the dead. The serpent is still gnawing. The new world begins with the same worm in its roots as the last one. Here is a question the entire mythology is built around, and it is not a comfortable one. If you know the end is coming, that the forces of destruction are stronger than the forces of order, that your gods will die and your world will burn, what do you do with that knowledge? The Norse answer is not to deny it, not to reframe it, not to find a theological workaround that makes the loss secretly a win. The Norse answer is to stand anyway. This is what makes Odin's relentless pursuit of wisdom coherent. Not because wisdom will save him, but because the alternative is to stop. And stopping is what despair looks like from the outside. This is what makes Valhalla make sense. This is what makes Freya's death, barehanded without his sword because he gave it away for love, feel like something other than a waste. Scholars call this heroic fatalism, the Norse worldview that accepts inevitable defeat without accepting helplessness. You know you will lose. You fight anyway, not because fighting changes the outcome, because fighting is what you are. In a world where most religions offer cosmic consolation, suffering is temporary, justice will be served, the arc bends toward meaning. The Norse mythology offers something more austere. The world is hard, the end is real, and the only meaningful thing you can do is be the kind of person who shows up for the fight anyway. The gods of Asgard are not worshipped because they are invincible. They are respected because they can lose, and they know it, and they keep going. There is one detail that has stayed with me. Odin sends out his two ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, every day to see all the worlds. And Odin is described as worried, not about any specific threat, about Munin, about memory. The god who sacrificed everything for knowledge is afraid of forgetting. That is an unbearably human thing for a god to fear. The gods of Ragnarok die memorably. Odin taken by the wolf he spent ages preparing to face. Thor dying from his oldest enemy's venom, having finally killed it. Freya dying barehanded for love. These are deaths that mean something about the lives that came before them, which is the only kind of death any of us can really hope for. Ragnarok is the most honest apocalypse in world mythology. It does not offer you victory. It does not offer you paradise. It offers you the chance to face the end without pretending it isn't coming, and to find in that refusal to pretend something that functions like dignity. The Norse knew they were telling a story about themselves as much as a story about gods. They lived in a world of long winters and hard seas and battles with outcomes that were never guaranteed. They built a mythology that honored that reality rather than escaping from it. And then, in a final twist that the mythology itself seems to have anticipated, they were converted to Christianity, their gods declared demons, their stories nearly lost. The old religion died the death it had always predicted. But the story survived. Written down by a Christian Icelander named Snorri Sturluson in the 13th century, who decided they were worth preserving even if they weren't his faith, who committed memory to writing so that Hugin and Munin could keep flying even after the one who sent them was gone. Thanks for watching.